Hi, everybody. Sorry I missed last week. I'll just start off by apologizing for that. I didn't mean to. It just kind of got away from me, so I just didn't feel I should finish or do anything by the time I realized that. So, this week, as promised, I'm going to be talking about learning styles and things like that. The main thing, well, let me jump into the challenge first. The challenge of learning Spanish. This week was a very, very rough week, and I'm still learning, but I don't have that many Spanish words down. So, I mean, it's slow progression, but I am learning a whole other language, a whole other form of communication. So, it takes time. So, it's apt that I jump into the learning. For everybody already knows the big things about learning. They already know that there are 3 types of learning, right? You know that there are audio, people who learn mostly by hearing, mostly by spoken word or reading out loud is very common for these types of learners. Then there's the visual learners. These people usually learn through demonstrations and through watching or seeing something done. So these learners are pretty easy to find. Most of us can relate to visual learners. Then there's the kinesthetic learners. These people are most often going to be very good with their hands, are going to be able to handle machinery and tools and things like that because they learn easiest by just doing it. By just going out and doing whatever has to be done, right? They're pretty easy to get along with, in my experience. I know a couple of them. My father-in-law is actually a kinesthetic learner, I believe. But these learning styles are very, very important, and it's kind of a good idea to identify it for yourself. Because going off of this week, what I'm going to call our motivational quote, but also our just quote, actually comes from Mark Twain. It's in which he said that I never let my education get in the way of my learning. Now that's a slight paraphrase, but it's kind of an important quote because once you identify how you learn, you can determine what to learn for yourself and how you can acquire that information. It's a great idea to do that because if you don't, then you just don't know how to get information. Everybody can learn anything. I firmly have always believed in that. If you really want to learn something, you can dedicate yourself and you can learn whatever it is. That's going to be our inspirational quote for this week. But more important than that, learning how to learn and learning how you learn can help you actually to communicate. They did a recent study, and it was actually announced on the radio on a local radio station that talked about that if you know how somebody learns, you can actually feel more connected to that person and communicate better with them by using simple paraphrases and words. For example, for audio learners, they will usually use words like I hear and I heard this or I have heard this. They'll use words like that that relates directly to their learning style, which is usually good to figure out because if somebody says that a lot, they're an audio learner. And that means that if you want to relate to them, you can use the similar words such as I hear or I've heard. Those sort of words will then relate to them and they'll actually pay attention and they can feel more related to you. So same thing with visual learners. They'll say I see or I have seen. Things like that they'll communicate in that fashion. That's important to know because then you can understand that this person learns in a visual aspect. So if you're going to present information to them, you might want to do so with presentations and things like that, or demonstrations. Kinesthetic learners, they will say things like I feel or I believe or things along those lines. And when they say things like that, once again, that shows you that they're a more hands-on learner. And if they're hands-on, then you probably are just going to do best with demonstrations and actually getting them to do the task. So those are the things that I learned, but it also is more than that. If you learn how to learn, there's nothing you can't accomplish. That's going to be our inspirational quote of, when you learn how to learn, you can learn anything. And there's nothing that you can't do. So that's this week's video. I'm sorry it was late. I hope y'all will forgive me for my lapse last week. And I look forward to doing next week's video. Keep on licking those pineapples, folks.